All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about the responsibilities of a clinical trial monitor. And look, this isn't just about ticking boxes on a checklist. It's a role that's absolutely central to making sure clinical research is safe, ethical, and ultimately successful. So let's kick things off with a really big question, right? When you think about the whole world of clinical trials, how do we actually make sure that everything is being done the right way? That patients are safe and that the data we're collecting is rock solid and trustworthy? Well, that's exactly where the monitor comes in. Think of yourself as the essential link, the bridge between the sponsor, the people funding the trial, and the investigator site, which is where all the action happens. You are that crucial connection. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the monitor's critical role. Then we'll break down the three main pillars: protecting participants, making sure the data is solid, and verifying that the site is compliant. And we'll finish up by talking about a more modern, risk-adapted approach to all of this. All right, let's jump in. The sponsor, they have the ultimate responsibility for the whole trial. But here's the thing, they can't be at every site all the time. That's where you come in. You are literally their eyes and ears on the ground, making sure everything is running exactly the way it's supposed to. So if we look at what good clinical practice, or GCP, tells us, your entire job really boils down to two main things. First, you've got to verify that the rights and well-being of the human subjects are protected, and second, you have to make sure that all the trial data that's being reported is accurate, complete, and totally verifiable from the source documents. Pretty much everything you do as a monitor supports these two massive goals. Okay, let's talk about our first pillar, and honestly, this is the most important one. I mean, everything else we discuss comes second to this. Your number one non-negotiable priority is always, always the trial participant. And the absolute cornerstone of protecting participants, it's all about informed consent. But look, this is so much more than just getting a signature on a piece of paper. It's a process. It's your job to make sure that every single person's decision to join the trial and to stay in the trial is 100% voluntary and based on a real understanding of what's involved. So for every single participant, you're going to put on your detective hat and check this process from top to bottom. Are they using the right version of the consent form, the one the ethics board actually approved? Did the investigator really sit down and have a proper discussion with them? And this one is huge. Was that form signed and dated before a single trial-related procedure started? And last but not least, did the participant actually get a copy to take home? Right, and you can really think of this slide as your go-to checklist for the consent form itself. You need to confirm it makes it crystal clear that this is research, not standard treatment. Does it lay out the potential risks and benefits? Does it say, loud and clear, that they can leave at any time? And here's a big one you have to check. Does it tell them that people like you, the monitor, and maybe even regulatory folks will need to look at their private medical records? Okay, so protecting patients is job one. We've established that. But think about this for a second. Without reliable, trustworthy data, the entire trial is scientifically worthless. It's a total waste. The time, the effort, the contribution of every single participant, it would all be for nothing. That's why your role in making sure the data has integrity is just so unbelievably critical. This quote here from ICHGCP, this is basically the golden rule of data management. And why is it so important? Well, because it's not enough to just scribble down some numbers. The information has to be recorded and handled in such a way that anyone, you, an auditor, a regulator, can walk in, look at it, and verify that it's accurate and true. It's all about that verifiability. And that brings us to this idea of source data. What is it? It's just all the original stuff. The medical charts, the lab results, you name it. And a huge chunk of your job is something called source data verification, or SDV. It's exactly what it sounds like. You take the data that's been entered into the trial database, the CRF, and you compare it line by line to those original source documents to make sure everything matches up perfectly. Now, this is something you're going to see all the time. People make mistakes, right? It happens. But how they fix those mistakes is what's really important. You can't just scribble it out or use whiteout. Nope. The right way is to draw a single line through the mistake, write the correction, and then initial and date it. This way, the original entry is still readable, and you have a perfect audit trail. You can see who changed what and when they did it. It's all about transparency. All right, on to pillar number 3. So we've covered protecting patients and we've covered protecting the data. Now we're looking at the bigger picture. You're also responsible for making sure the whole operation at the site is running by the book and following all the rules. So every time you're on site, you're going to be investigating these key areas. You're asking, are they following the study protocol exactly? Are the people doing the work actually qualified and trained to do it? Do they even have enough staff and facilities to handle this trial? How are they managing the investigational drug? Is it stored right? Is it accounted for? And what about their big binder of essential documents, their study site file? Is it complete? Is it current? Okay, let's wrap up by talking about how monitoring is done today. See, in the old days, the idea was to check 100% of everything, every single data point. And you can imagine that was just exhausting and not very efficient. Now, we know it's way more effective to focus our energy on the things that actually matter the most.
And that's the whole idea behind a risk-based approach. It's all about identifying what's truly critical, what processes, what data points absolutely have to be right to protect patients and get reliable results. And then you focus your monitoring efforts right there. It's the classic case of working smarter, not harder.
And this whole cycle is what's going to guide your monitoring plan. It's a really smart process. You start by figuring out what the biggest risks are. Then you evaluate them. How likely are they to happen? How bad would it be if they did? Then you put controls in place to manage those risks. You communicate about it, you review to see if it's working, and you report on it. It's a continuous loop that makes sure your work is having the biggest possible impact. So what's the big takeaway here? Your role as a monitor, it's so much more than just being a box checker. It's about taking these core pillars, protecting patients, ensuring data integrity, and verifying compliance, and actively applying them through a smart, risk-based lens. That is how you become the guardian of both the ethical and scientific integrity of a clinical trial.